in 1869, as the British Empire continued its rapid expansion across the globe, the Cutty Sark was one of the last and fastest clipper ships to be constructed in the Victorian era. Despite the simultaneous opening of the Suez Canal and increased use of steamships, Cutty Sark would remain one of the fastest vessels of its time, setting numerous records for overseas travel.
And today, I've been given exclusive access to the famous tea clipper, as well as an opportunity to climb over 70 feet high up her rigging.
By the mid-19th century, the British Empire's focus in trade had shifted from the sugar and tobacco plantations across the Atlantic in the Americas to the spices, fabrics and tea which was grown in the East Indies and China.
It was mainly the transportation of tea that Cutty Sark was designed for, a seasonal trade of high-value cargo from China to London. And in this trade, speed was everything.
Up until 1866, a premium or bonus was paid to the ship that arrived with the first tea of the year, and so the first batch of the new tea harvest was highly coveted. The bonus paid and the commercial importance of securing a reputation for being a fast ship culminated in an annual tea race in which numerous clippers would compete to be the first ship to dock in London. The annual tea race was a Victorian sensation. In 1866, in what became known as the Great Tea Race, the ship's progress was reported by telegraph and could be followed in the papers. Huge bets were laid on the outcome.
The stakes were high, and so was the attention to detail when it came to designing and constructing the tea clipper ships. As you go below the Cutty Sark, the first thing you'll notice is the long, narrow, refined hull shape and this extremely sharp clipper bow that could cut through the water at speeds of 17.5 knots, which is roughly 20 miles an hour. But what is even more spectacular lies above deck.
The Cutty Sark had over 11 miles of rigging and an original sail area of 32,000 square feet across 32 sails. All of these design features allowed her to become one of the fastest ships of her day. The main mast still stands at a whopping 153 feet, and today I've been given a chance to climb as far as I'm allowed up to the top.
So this is the main deck, and it's got three masts. We've got the foremast, the main mast and the mizzen mast, and I'm going to be going up the main mast. So this is it, off I go.
Just like a ladder.
Where am I going? Up.
All the way
just don't stop. Okay. Right. So the sections going across are the ratlins, and these are where you put your feet. And the sections, the verticals, these are called shrouds, and that's where you're supposed to grip on with your hands. Now in movies you always see them kind of scurrying up really speedy, but actually they're quite big gaps and it's quite difficult. It requires quite a lot of leg muscle, I have to say. Oh, it's getting quite high. I mean, it's quite tricky to do this on a still sunny day in London, albeit it is quite nippy. But you know, just thinking about people who have done this in torrential rain or tempestuous seas, it's quite something else. And of course, with absolutely no harness. Hello! Hi! Hello.
Just there. Perfect.
Oh,
Hello there.
hello.
Welcome. Very good. All right. Step on up. Haha. Very good.
I'm here.
Well done.
Well, just look at that view. So over there, I can see, over there you can see one of the most famous skyscrapers in London. That's the headquarters of HSBC. And back in the 19th century, this is where tea clippers would dock after exhausting races to bring back the first tea cargo of the season to Britain. Now, in 1872, this ship, the Cutty Sark, was involved in the last real tea race that caught the public attention. She was against the Thermopylae, which was an extreme composite clipper ship built a year earlier. Now, the two ships, they left Shanghai together on the 18th of June and remained neck and neck until disaster struck for Team Cutty Sark. She lost her rudder in the heavy seas of the Indian Ocean. Now, this meant that Thermopylae had the advantage. She arrived back in London 7 days earlier. But even so, and even with that little hiccup in the Indian Ocean, Cutty Sark's performance was still pretty remarkable.
But just as I pondered the astonishing achievement, disaster struck.
Okay.
Oh no.
Damn, we're going to have to get you back down.
Okay, that's all right.
That sounds like you're absolutely ready to go back down.
And just like that, my dreams of reaching the top of the mast were crushed. However, Cutty Sark had actually been devastated by a fire in 2007, and so the crew were understandably eager to get me off by whatever means necessary.
Yeah.
It's off.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Good luck. Wish me luck.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Good. Happy?
Yeah.
Right,
I'm really
right.
happy.
Just guide yourself over that beam there.
Okay. Right, we're going off the main beam. All right.
That's it, nicely done.
Down I come, down the Cutty Sark.
Nice to meet you. I'm sure I'll see you down there.
See you down there.
Similar to my experience of climbing up the rigging, the Cutty Sark's involvement in the hugely competitive tea trade was unfortunately cut short by the growing use of the Suez Canal, which had opened the very same year of her construction. The canal offered steamships a shorter route to the Far East, slashing approximately 2 months off their journey time. The winds of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean were not, however, suited to the clippers, and so the increasing speed and cargo capacity of steamships soon rendered the sailing ships unprofitable, and by the late 1870s the Cutty Sark had been pushed out of the tea trade. And her problems would not stop there. After Cutty Sark collected its last Chinese tea cargo in 1877, her crew were thrown into turmoil with a succession of unfortunate events. In 1880, an incident occurred on board the Cutty Sark. The first mate, Sidney Smith, a renowned bully, murdered a fellow seaman, John Francis. Smith was allowed to leave the ship at Anjer by the ship's captain, James Wallace. It caused the crew to cease work in protest. Wallace continued to lead the voyage, but the ship became becalmed in the Java Sea for 3 days due to a lack of wind. In desperation, as matters moved from bad to worse, Wallace jumped overboard and his body was lost. These dark events gave the Cutty Sark a new reputation amongst sailors. It became known as a hell ship, a cursed vessel. Despite this period of turmoil, however, the ship's owner, Jock Willis, was determined to turn the clipper's fortune around. And so, in 1885, he hired an excellent, albeit eccentric, clipper captain named Richard Woodgett. Captain Woodgett recognised that the Cutty Sark's commercial edge now lay in the dangerous wool run to Australia. The decision would bring the ship into its most successful period of working life. In this arena, the Cutty Sark would once again excel, setting speed records between London, Melbourne and Sydney. Transporting wool from Australia saw it sail faster than every ship at the time, by 25 days to a month. Woodgett achieved this by taking a more southerly route than previously to catch the strongest winds of the roaring 40s, despite having to also face icebergs, gales and storms whipped up by the winds he sought. And so, Cutty Sark was the fastest ship on the wool trade for 10 years.
Another decade of success for the Cutty Sark had sealed her reputation as one of the fastest trade ships of the Victorian era, but it could not outlast nor outperform the rapidly evolving steamship, and by the last decade of the 19th century, Cutty Sark had ceased to be profitable and was sold to a Portuguese firm.
During this period, Cutty Sark was renamed Ferreira and was used as a cargo ship, transporting goods between Portugal and its empire. She would survive a world war unscathed, but the ship suffered damage during particularly bad weather and as a result was converted into a sailing ship. The retired captain Wilfred Dowman became determined to buy the ship. He was so determined, in fact, that he offered to pay a price of £3,750, more than what the ship was worth even in 1895. The old name was restored in 1923 and Cutty Sark returned to British ownership.
30 years later, she was towed here to Greenwich, where she has remained ever since. And she's been opened twice by the Queen, first in 1957 and then in 2012. She has survived world wars and fires, and now with public support along with the Heritage Lottery Fund, she remains one of the only 3 original clipper ships from the 19th century, in part or whole, that still exists, and it can still be visited by the public today.
Check out the History Hit YouTube, where you can get great exclusive videos and a sneak peek at what's available on the world's best history channel, History Hit TV. It's growing really fast. We're thrilled to have you all aboard.